Our two presenters, both named Jennifer. Jennifer Millar is a research physical therapist at the Johns Hopkins Laboratory of Vestibular Neuro Adaptation. And Jennifer Keller is also a research physical therapist at the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Baltimore. So let's please welcome Jennifer to their stage.
We're not sure if we're sitting or standing. We might change since you're going to see us for a while. So,
And hello to everybody who's tuning in virtually. Hello, everybody here. Yes, I'm Jennifer Millar, and I'm from Johns Hopkins Ataxia Center, and I want to thank Lori and the conference organizers for inviting us to speak to you today.
And I'm Jennifer Keller, and as I said, I'm also a research physical therapist, and we work closely together and we're friends, so it's nice for us to be able to be here together and present to you on something kind of a little bit more nuts and bolts of helping people with ataxia, and then things that we do in our labs that we think are important for you to know about. So thank you for having us. And we're not exactly sure. We might end a little early with the first talk and give you a little break and then continue since the second set of our slides are a little longer. So we'll just see how we go and what questions you have for us. So to start, let's see. We have the same disclaimer. So as physical therapists, we really do encourage you to go to your provider before, undertaking an exercise program. We'll talk about some exercise or getting any equipment for yourself. It's really individualized, so it's important to do that. And any of the products that we mention in the presentations aren't endorsed by the National Ataxia Foundation or by us. We're just giving you some examples of things that are out there that might be of use to you. And we don't have any disclosures related to our talk today. So the things that we really want to tell you about today include talking about some common impairments like in coordination and imbalance. And then because those lead us into why we choose what things we do that we think would be compensatory strategies to help improve mobility and participation, and in particular to help people be safe in their environment. And so that includes mobility devices like walking aids and wheelchairs, and possibly orthotics, which are like braces that go on your feet or your wrists. And then adaptive equipment that can help in your daily activities, as well as safety considerations. So first, I just wanted to give you a big framework of where rehab, how we kind of think about how we help everyone get back into participating in their life to their fullest. And so, of course, we start with the health condition, in this case ataxia, and whether or not the disorder is progressive or not. And then also, we start to look at the basics, like what your coordination is like, how your speech is, what your eye movements might be, what your sensation is like, and what your cognitive function is. And then from there, we look at what are your what's your ability to walk, to get from the bathroom to the kitchen, and then your reading ability and how to be safe. And then there's also like getting out into the community and doing the things you want to do. So your profession, playing with your kids, taking care of your household responsibilities. But there's also all these other things that go into individualizing rehab and where we want our quality of life. And today we're really focused on the environmental factors. So these are the aids that you can do to support your participation in these different activities that are important to you. And I'm just going to start with in coordination, because that is where, oh no, that's okay. I think you'll be okay.
Keep going, you're good.
In coordination, so there's two different components of reaching or leg movements that are important for how we move and how the cerebellum is acts to help us move better. So one is the ability to scale a movement. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with the finger to nose test, but missing that finger or missing your nose, that's dysmetria. And I'm showing you these paths. So these are from a reaching study where we put markers on people's fingers, wrists, and shoulder, and we ask them to reach to a target. And the black paths in the upper left corner here are someone without ataxia who's asked to reach slow and accurately to the target. And you can see they have a nice straight path, and all of their little black dots are right on top of it, so they got to the target that they were reaching for. And if you look to the right of the red lines, it's somebody with ataxia. You can see that they also are pretty good at getting to the target, but they have a little bit of curve to their path. But they also pretty much overlap each other. And then in the diagrams below, you can see we ask somebody to reach quickly, but also accurately. And someone without ataxia, they are still able to reach in a straight path over and over and make the target nearly as well as they did it when they were moving slowly. However, this is where the difference comes in for someone with ataxia, that their paths get much more variable, and they're much less accurate at reaching for the target. So the really important take-home message from this, though, is that if you slow down, you can be a lot more accurate, and maybe that can help, get you to do what it is that you want to do. The other feature of coordination that is important is combining the movement at multiple joints, and that's a difficulty when you have cerebellar damage. It's easier to move at just one joint than it is to combine the motion at multiple joints at one time. So in this figure at the top, you can see that the diagram has, oops, I'm sorry, I used the wrong button. The elbow is resting on a surface, so it's basically blocked so that it's staying on the armrest, and they can just move and flex and extend their elbow. And so the person without ataxia in the upper left corner, they get to the target pretty accurately and over again to the same spot just doing this. But the person who has some ataxia, there's a little more variability, but again, they're also fairly good at getting to where they want to be. But then we free up the elbow and we allow the person to move in this test with both their elbow and their shoulder to get to the target. And there's a little more variability for the person without ataxia, but it's still pretty good. But you can see again the big difference for when the person who has ataxia is able to move at both the shoulder and the elbow, then there's a lot less ability to get to the target accurately. And so here the take-home message is really that if you can reduce a movement to just a single joint at a time, you might have a lot better success. So one of my patients gave a perfect example of when they go to reach for a cup and they have their arm free, they can spill something all over, but they tend to rest their arm on the table and pick up the cup and leave their elbow there, and they can be much more successful without spilling their drink. And so those are something that's pretty simple that you can use in your right away. There are also strategies that we find people really to notice on their own and start using, without actually any instruction. So you may find that you do it, but you could be more intentional about it. That's what leads us into talking about compensatory strategies. So these are ways that we can help be more safe in our environment and to give more mobility and how to transfer. We're going to go over just some tips for doing that well. And so the one thing I want to mention is the whole reason, or one of the big reasons for this is falling and what we can do to prevent or limit falling. There's really nothing that brings you into the present moment more than finding yourself on the floor. And it should be a sign to take some action. And this study that was done in Europe looked at why people fall or how we could predict people were falling who have cerebellar ataxia. And the main finding was if they had fallen before, that was a predictor that you may fall again. And so that's a really important thing for us as clinicians to be asking, for family members to be taking note of, and for a person with ataxia to say, this is my wake-up call, this might be a chance that I should look a little bit closer at how I'm moving in my environment. And then also, they found that there were some features of severity of ataxia that also played into whether or not there was injury from falling. So that would be sort of a follow-up to whether or not someone is falling. And so that's why I think we're asked to be here and talk about some of these things for you today. So we sort of started off with this, and you probably already do some of these things, but make it simple, keep it simple, move more slowly like I talked about, simplify your movements. So when you stand up from a chair, make sure that take that extra breath and notice if you're stable before you take that first step. Do things one at a time, don't walk and talk on the phone. You probably already know that it just takes more attention for you to do something well and safely, and just make that time. And it's hard for all of us to do it, but give yourself permission to ask for help, because that can really help you get through your day if you don't have to do everything yourself. I think I'm passing off to Jen.
All right, in the next few slides, we'll review some simple mobility and transfer tips to consider. Keep in mind when managing your symptoms of ataxia, it is okay to give yourself permission to do tasks slightly differently than you've always done them to be safe. And it's okay to break things down into steps and do things one at a time and move slowly. Now, here with bed mobility, do optimize your safety and independence. First bend your knees, then roll onto your side, and then sit up. If you do have someone with you, do try to do as much work as you can on your own, and only accept help if you need it. So if transfers from a bed to a chair or vice versa become difficult, assess what you can do realistically on your own. And if you are able to transfer on your own or using a device, these are some simple steps for transferring from a chair to the bed with the help of a person. Often choosing a chair that is solid with armrests always makes it easier to get out of the chair, as opposed to sitting in a chair that's low, cushy, or soft without armrests. So steps include scooting to the edge, pushing through your arm using the armrests, and if a helper may guide your hips if needed. Just take one step at a time until you feel that the back of your legs touch the chair before you sit, and then finally reach back to the bed or the chair using your hands to guide you. These are just some steps for getting in and out of a tub. This is our OT colleague, Marlena. OTs can help kind of train and assess what type of a tub bench or adaptations to your bathroom that might be of help. So this tub bench allows you to have to sit outside of the tub and then scoot with one leg at a time into the tub, and then shift your weight to where you are aiming to be. We hope you don't fall, but something we do in the clinic sometimes is practice what to do in the event of a fall and how you're going to plan to get off the floor. And again, don't expect yourself to stand straight up from the floor to standing with nothing to hold on to. Feel free to crawl to a chair or a bed and kind of get up in steps, where you crawl into the chair, get one leg underneath you, stand, and then sit in the chair, kind of get yourself composed before you try to stand up and navigate. And then just some simple steps for getting in and out of a car. Don't feel like you have to stand on one leg and put the other leg into the car. Feel free to sit down first, and then scoot your hips back into the seat. If your hips don't slide easily, Marlena always suggested putting a little plastic bag underneath your hips to ease sliding. And then bring one foot into the bed into the car, and then the other, and then pull the bag out, and you're good to go.
So we're going to talk about some more devices and aids at this time. And so these are just things that we've seen in the community that we've used with some of our patients with ataxia, but we're not advocating one in particular. And if you're here at the conference, there's a lot of other ones. It's kind of like the perfect opportunity to see a lot of variety of what might be available. So devices can help simplify movement, just like we talked about, like limiting activity to one joint. It can help make that more more possible. So an ankle foot orthosis is something that goes at the ankle and helps keep the foot up. Some people think of it for drop foot, but it's also a way to reduce the amount of joints that you have to control when you're walking. So if the ankle is braced, it limits how much you can straighten your knee, which can help with, hyperextension. A lot of us, push our knees all the way back, and that can be hard on our knees. So this can help control the ankle and the knee, so that with walking, you just have to move at the hip, which is, again, like that principle of breaking it down to one joint at a time. And then wrist splints are another option because they can reduce the activity that you need to use at your wrists, which might make it more able to use your fingers or reach for an object. So I think that Jen and I, we vary in our amount that we actually recommend these. I probably tend to do it more than she does. But I would say that for some people, they've been really invaluable. So it's definitely worth just giving it a try, even though it might not be your first or your best option. And then there's a lot of different walking aids. I really like hiking sticks as a first option to keep you walking out in the community, especially two, so you don't become asymmetric. You tend to lean on just one if you have it. So if you're just talking about getting yourself to be able to keep going a little further or over uneven surfaces, they also look normal and walking on a path, so you don't have to feel like you're going for a device right away. And then there are great walkers. I always like a walker that comes up from behind for someone with ataxia because it gives freedom for where you place your feet. It's difficult to put your foot in the space that you want to put it in. Kind of the same thing as that reaching dysmetria. We find it in foot placement, and so this gives you that opportunity. This is a life glider. It also has a bicycle seat to help prevent you from falling and give you a place to rest, and a seat belt to keep it close to you. And then the Nitro walker has become very popular. I see it everywhere. It's very stable, and it's good for going outside over some uneven surfaces. The U-step is very heavy, and so that makes it very stable. One nice feature of it is that you have to squeeze. The brakes are always on, so you have to squeeze for the brakes to be released. So if you tend to have the roll away from you, this is a good, cue before you start moving. You need to do something to actually make that happen. And then there are these upright walkers that have become more popular as well. So this kind of breaks down that joint to moving at one joint as well. You don't have to control the walker with both hands and worry about it sliding around. You're just moving more at your shoulder to advance them. And you can be a little bit more upright. This is a walker that I have not seen, but I think seems amazing. On the videos, it has the wheels in front are like a mountain bike, and so they have some suspension on them, and so they show them going over rocks and things and up over curbs, and it's expensive, so that's why I probably haven't seen one, but I think it would be a worthwhile thing to try. And then canes, standard canes, and other hiking poles. Again, it's really great if you have the ability to work with a therapist. Getting these set up to the right height is really important for not straining your shoulders and making sure that they're appropriate. And also the other option is often with We can set up an equipment company to come in and have ones that you can try, and they know what's on the market and available. But you can also go to your local medical supply store. And someone mentioned at one of the birds of the feather is that a lot of states have loaner closets now that you can go and borrow something or have it for an extended period of time. I know the one in my area requires a therapist to give a prescription for it, though, before you can actually go and take something. We have some more upright platform walker examples that are out there, and there's mostly, I think we show these too, because if you notice, there's quite a range in price. So it's just something I know we all take into consideration, but it's important. You can have like a regular walker that you add platforms to, but then you can have ones that come where this is the main way for your support of your upper body. Is there anything else to add?
Well, the one thing I will add to what Jen's saying is sometimes, and Jenn has mentioned this many times, when it comes to starting using a new device, give yourself time to get used to it. It takes a little bit of coordination to get used to walking with the device. So
that's a good point. There's actually a study that showed that there were more falls right after someone started getting a device, just started using it. So it's another good reason to have some practice time to get used to it. So also about devices for kids. So they're sort of similar, although it's much more popular to use a posterior walker with a child, and that's really nice because of the leg placement. It lets you also get up closer to a table to do something and participate. They can also be referred to as gait trainers. Some of them, there's some overlap between the two because of what accessories are put on them to help. So they also usually require a letter of medical necessity. So they usually require a specific PT visit and a trial of different ones because they are more expensive. And then being upright is really important for a lot of different things, for bone density, for like exploring your environment, for bladder and bowel and GI function. And so early on when kids aren't walking, just being in a stander for a period of time can be a really important thing. So that just giving you an example of something like that might be an option.
And then just another point when it comes to thinking about walkers, devices, and now we'll talk about some wheelchairs. Some of these devices you might not need all the time, but it's nice to have them handy for the bad days or where you're going to be navigating in places that have uneven ground or darkness or crowds. So, we want you to make decisions on devices based on your abilities. Sometimes planning for the worst case scenario isn't a bad thing, to have these devices available. And that's kind of how we'll transition to wheelchairs. We want you to be walking as long as possible, and hopefully in our next session you'll be inspired to exercise and find ways to keep moving. But in terms of wheelchairs, there's manual and power options, and there's all kinds of different categories of wheelchairs, whether it's lightweight, heavy duty, more portable, more permanent. We'll just give you some basic examples that there's so many options on the market. You would work with a physical therapist and/or OT, along with a vendor who is most familiar with the current products on the market, again, to make decisions of what the appropriate piece of equipment would be for you based on your abilities, how much, that kind of thing. So these are just examples, but it's not an exhaustive list. There's a gazillion options online, and the vendor would be the best person to make you aware of your options. And then, of course, if you are going to be spending any sort of lengthy time in a chair, you would want to have an appropriate seating setup, whether it's a good solid gel or foam or air cushion, a wedge, and then a good back support, whether it's solid back support would be a more permanent type seating system versus a sling back support. Elevating leg rests or swing away or heel loops, those are coming to the consideration when ordering a chair. And then there's a whole bunch of accessories too. And I found it fun that Jansport is now selling adaptive backpacks that can go in the back of a wheelchair, which is nice. When it comes to obtaining a wheelchair, often in terms of insurance and going through the referral process, prescription process, often insurance companies follow Medicare guidelines, and of course every insurance is a little different. But here's some basic requirements that are checklists that needs to be done to order a manual or power chair and have it reimbursed by insurance. A PT or OT wheelchair eval with a vendor present is important. And then you would need a face-to-face appointment with your doctor, and in their documentation, they need to reflect that you have a medical need for manual or power mobility. And that documentation must be clear that you're unable to functionally use any other assisted device safely in the home for it to be paid for. And if it does indicate that you are walking in the home, there is a chance for this to be denied. So there's a little balance between the requirements to getting these things and, of course, what your real abilities are. So, and then the wheelchair vendor tends to take care of obtaining all the required documentation and communicating with the doctor's office regarding what documents are needed. Again, as Jen said here at the conference, it's a great place to get ideas of scooters and walkers and things. So, in the scooter category, they're generally not paid for by insurance, but there's lots of really cool options to allow you to travel to a place, Las Vegas, where it's crowded and busy and you'll be walking long distances. So it's something to consider having available if you need it. And then in the category of compensatory strategies and devices that are available, a neurospecialist has developed a torso-weighted vest that many might have heard of. I've seen some people wearing it here. And it's been shown to be helpful to provide extra sensory feedback and improve postural stability. And the vest has very, very light weights that are strategically placed to address postural control impairments. So for example, if we were to do a perturbation test, like kind of give you a force from front to back, and you might have difficulty stabilizing in that plane of movement, we would weight you on the lower torso, and maybe just a half a pound of weight can help change your stability. And we've seen people have dramatic improvements in their ability to get out of a chair or walk. So it's something that can be really helpful for some people, and some people it doesn't really help at all. And of course, we as therapists always advocate for you to try balance and exercise and see how far you can get with that. Before this is an out-of-pocket cost. That's the only downside. It's almost $500. But again, for some people, it's so helpful they're willing to pay any price.
Right. So I think what you're getting from us is that, everybody is different, and so it's really important to get things that work well for you. One thing that has been out in our field for a long time is that adding weights to like the wrist or the arm would help with reaching, particularly in pediatric therapy. But in our lab, one of our doctoral students did a study with a robot, actually the robot that Bill Nye was sitting in the video the other day, and really, really finely figured out how much weight would be needed to make an adjustment for reaching just perfectly at the forearm and at the shoulder. And we weren't really able to make anyone better by doing that. And so in that way, we don't think that using a weight on the arm is going to be beneficial to improve your coordination, if that's what the purpose is. On the other hand, if you need to get stronger, then you should definitely use a weight on the limb or resistance bands in order to get, or exercise. So I think it just goes back to the principles that go behind what therapy you do. We're going to talk about that more in the next talk. It's just important to know why you're doing what it is you're doing so that you get the best benefit for what you need. The last thing I think we're going to talk about was just, changing your environment to make it safe and things that you might want to consider. So, think about the chair that you're sitting in. Getting into a low sofa might be pretty hard to get out of again, especially if you've been there for a while. So maybe you need to be in a more upright chair or a chair with arms so that you're sure that you can get back up. Making sure you check your area for fall hazards. We always recommend getting rid of area rugs or small rugs that are loose in the bathroom. Make sure that you don't have your laptop cord stretched across the floor. And night lights can be so important. A lot of people don't only have cerebellar ataxia, but they also have a sensory ataxia where they have some numbness in their feet or their hands, and turning on the lights can be a really important compensatory strategy. So, having an automatic light that could go on when you get up to go to the bathroom at night could be important. Making sure that you have handrails or grab bars available on your stairs and in your bathroom is also really important. And then there's adaptive equipment for the home that can be that pretty easily, found on like Amazon, grab bars to help you get out of that soft couch that you want to sit in to watch TV, bed rails at your bed. I would just write a caveat that some of these were recalled recently, and so make sure that the one that you're using is not those. They need to be anchored to the bed so they don't slide out and you can't slide into the side and hurt your arm or get injured. That's the reason. The adaptive equipment for the kitchen, so things that we all can use and are available to everyone, really important to think of. So like a food chopper, so you might be able to stabilize a little bit easier, not cut yourself with a knife. While I said weights aren't beneficial for coordination, sometimes they'll just slow you down, or even having the built-up handles a little bit larger can make it easier to grasp them for eating. There's lots of no-spill cups on the market. You should try a bunch out, helpful to prevent you from having to clean up later. And Dyson is a particular thing that we use a lot. It can really keep stuff from sliding. It's just like a Velcro that you can pick up easily and put back down, but it can keep your plate from moving around when you're eating, or all sorts of other uses. It's a little bit pricey, I'll tell you that though, so you know. And okay.
And then just with working with an OT is a great available resource to help you problem solve for all these adaptive equipment ideas or ways to navigate your daily activities. In our little Birds of a Feather support group, in terms of the bathroom, people had mentioned that they do have these portable grab bars, and I'm sure a few people who are here maybe have brought them in their suitcase for the hotel here. But those can be handy to have. And what was mentioned yesterday is that people do a little safety check to make sure that the suction is appropriately firm on the bathroom wall before putting any force through it. So either portable grab bars or permanent grab bars can be helpful in the bathroom. Again, working with an OT to identify if a tub bench would help make your bathroom routine a little bit more easy. Toilet frames, electric toothbrush. Many people here already have probably figured out this method of brushing their teeth to make their life easier, not having to really worry about coordinating the motion. So, and then, nowadays there's lots of technology available to us. If you're trying to think of ideas for a birthday gift or something from your loved ones, you could consider asking for a remote vacuum to help keep your house clean, conserve your energy. As Jenn said, smart lighting can be really helpful. Using, whether using the Echo Dot or Google system or motion sensor lighting with special light bulbs. And then as part of what we work on in therapy with people and trying to help them problem solve, we hope with therapy you will be less likely to fall, and with implementing your safe mobility strategies. But falls do happen, so it is good to plan what are you going to do in the event of a fall. The Apple Watch is a great device. It's not for many reasons, but it can also be a really great tool to just help you be able to call help in the event of emergency. And then as mentioned in the previous slides, if you do fall, you don't expect to get up from the floor without the help of a bed or chair or prop to be able to do so safely. So we are going to take a little break right now, and we can take a few questions if anyone has any so far, or we can wait till the end. And then we're going to do some about a few chair exercises, and then we'll play a video with some examples of exercises, and you are welcome to participate or not participate in the exercise part. You can feel free to do as you wish, but we'll take a few questions first. Oh, cool.
Questions that came in online.
Oh, thanks.
For you to consider.
Okay. Okay, when using a wheelchair or even being less active, or even having a less active lifestyle, how important is it in being upright, and how often and how long? That's a great question from David Henry, thank you. As we were saying before, sometimes having, if you are, we want you to be as mobile as possible and keep your function as long as possible. So if you do spend time in the day in a wheelchair, and you have the ability to stand with the support of a counter, having time up in an upright standing position is extremely beneficial. It can help with your own bodily functions, strength, balance, all kinds of good things can happen by just taking time during the day to stand from the chair as much as possible.
When we get standers for kids, we usually, like all equipment, we kind of break things in a little at a time, so get them used to it for like 15 minutes at a time. But if you were to use something like that, we typically try and get a child up to anywhere from 1 to 3 hours a day standing if they're not spending time standing normally. We have a few other questions here, so let's see. Do you have a recommendation for a walker for someone who has been in a wheelchair for about 5 years? So I feel like that's a great question, Jessica. Like a lot of people ask. I think we're going to talk a little bit about, when it's good to get like a boost of therapy, and I think that that's probably a good time to get a boost of therapy to see what would be the best option if you want to be doing some more standing at home. Just like a chance for a short like duration of intense therapy to see what might be the best option. We didn't really talk about it, but I think we both sort of use like the dental model for our patients. So we ask you to come at a certain interval so we can just see how you're doing and update your home exercise program or those kinds of things. So and then give like an intense bout of therapy for a short period of time to work on specific goals that you might have.
And then somebody wanted to lob the public service announcement that she got a motion sensor light in her bedroom down near the floor. So it allows her to see her feet when she gets up in the middle of the night to have an extra night light in the bathroom. Thank you, Stephanie.
Any questions from the audience or yes? Oh.
I don't have questions. I just have 3 comments. One is that my friend Carol and I have this walker. It wasn't on your thing, but it's very light. I use it on airplanes. It folds up easily like this. And I've had Ataxia for 18 years, so if anybody wants to try this out, you're more than welcome to it.
What's the name of the walker?
It's by Acre, B-U-Y, Acre, A-C-R-E. A-C-R-E, yes. And the other comments I have is that I use all the time a stick I got on Amazon. It's a grabber. So what it has is, if I need to grab a box or something, I just push it and it grabs. They used to have it years ago in general stores, but if you have to reach for something, the grabber is great. So I didn't see that on your slide. And the final comment I have is that I have used many, many times the portable portable grab bars, and it never worked for me. So, as you mentioned, test it out because it may work for you, but I had long ones, short ones, and it never worked for me. And that's it.
Thank you. Those are all very good points. I don't know why we don't have a reacher, but that's an absolute, essential tool that you should have. It just has a little grab thing on the end of it and then a pinchers at the end and give you a couple of feet that you can pick something up if you're sitting down. And then you're right, the mobile grab bars are very difficult. They have to be on a flat surface. They have to be completely on that. So tile, where they're small tiles, they don't work well. So there are a lot of situations. I mean, something that's mounted in your bathroom is ideal, but sometimes that's not available. So that's why we, let you know that these are out there. Thank you very much.
I was really happy that you went over kind of the steps to try to get a wheelchair. We've been struggling for the last few years. At one point, she even broke her leg, and we couldn't get a wheelchair. We end up going through the American Legion. A lot of times that's, just an option to go to your American Legion or go to an organization, and so they lent us one because we couldn't even get her home. We're struggling right now. She aged out of my insurance, so she's on Medicaid, and in Florida, unfortunately, they're not real helpful. So we've gone through, she only gets like 10 physical therapy appointments a year. So each year, we go through with our first thing that we're saying is we want to try to do an evaluation to see what devices are needed or what she qualifies for. And then we've had the, one-on-one with the primary, and we just really haven't been getting anywhere. She bought this scooter herself with her SSI, so she paid for it. But we're kind of moving to where we may need a little bit more. So her physical therapist, she's in physical therapy right now, and they have her working with a walker, but she hasn't really found one that she's comfortable with or that works well for her. Do you have any other suggestions of what we might be able to do to try to, we feel like we keep going through this every year, literally for the last 5 years. We get the evaluation, we go to the doctor, and basically we're just tough, figure it out.
It's a true problem for a lot of people, and I will say there are some things that we've found are important. So in the documentation that the therapist makes, you really need to write that you tried a front rolling walker that's cheaper, and there's no way that you'll fall if you use that. There's no way I can use this walker because so they have to have all the different ones, and you have to explain every line why that doesn't work. They've sort of it used to be that every few years, 3 to 5 years, you could get a new wheelchair, but it's more like 7 now, so it's become harder and harder. One of my friends who works in managed care, she's like, always call back again because you may be the person that you got the first time that denied it wasn't, there might be someone else, or ask for the person above them for, politely and going through, but there's some people that have the ability to make a change in, what's being provided, than someone else. So not that that's, and then I think you're right. I don't know, sometimes going to a bigger medical center can be helpful because they work with, equipment companies, and the equipment company might be most up on what language has been used to get something to go through insurance better at the time. So sometimes it's worth that extra trip to a bigger place with an equipment seating appointment so that they can actually make those recommendations.
I will say that originally she was approved for a power chair when she was 18. She was going through Evoke Rehab, and she didn't want a power chair at the time. She wanted to keep walking, and she's been doing good. She'll be 35 this year, so she's been walking, but we just need a little more help now. And she's still walking some, but it's getting a bit harder and challenging, and so we're trying to find what we need. But I guess I would say if someone does approve you at one time, don't turn it down, because we've been trying now for 15 years to get that option back and haven't been able to.
Thanks.
Yes, I have a question. Do you know if it's available to have, I'm trying to find a motorized transfer chair. I have a manual transfer chair and it doesn't go uphill very well. So I'm trying to find something that's motorized or a power chair that's on the cheaper end, is a little cheaper than I could find. Is it available? Do you know?
So if you want insurance to pay for it, that's just that one other thing, which is just making sure that you don't buy it yourself before you ask insurance to pay for it. But if you're not, there are some things out there, and to be honest, I mean, I don't have a lot of, I could talk with you afterwards. There are a couple that people have used recently, and I think Jenn had one on there, but there are some more that are also similar, so I think you can get our slides, but you can look for something similar to that folds and is power. That's just a joystick. Just be careful that it has the right amount of seating support so that you don't, because adjusting and driving can be a little bit hard to get used to too.
I was just thinking if I could, if someone in this room might have something similar that I could try. I definitely would like to try some power chairs, but I don't feel like I want to buy anything online without trying it first. So.
A lot of the local, equipment company, like DME providers, even like the Costco's or the big box stores have some too, so it might be worth just checking those out.
I've been going to a therapy for 25 years, and for the first time, last year or a year and a half ago, my therapist put me in a standard. How come we're not put in those? I loved it so much, and it, is something that nobody has ever talked about with me that I think is beneficial. Why is that?
It's a good point. I mean, honestly, and Jenn can speak for herself, but usually there's a lot of pushback from the person who we might suggest it from, so I bet we've kind of gotten out of the habit a little bit because people don't really, they're really big, so for the home you have to have space for it, and so
I was put in one at the therapist.
Oh.
I mean, this was the first therapy place that had a standard.
That might also be the thing. I think we'll talk about finding a neurotherapist. Like a regular outpatient orthopedic clinic doesn't usually have equipment like that. So, and that might be really your first place that you can go that's closer to home is like that, an orthopedic clinic. But like if you can look for a place that treats people with like multiple sclerosis, something that's a little more common, then you might have something that has a lot more equipment available. Well, maybe this is a good time for us to take a break, take about 10 minutes. We have a couple of slides of some sitting exercises if you want to do them with us, or else you can just feel free to get up and move around. You're also free to do that at all during the whole rest of our talk because it's so hard to sit all day. So really it's fine with us if you move around.
Thanks so much, Jenn and Jenn. That was great information.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
I'm Mark Minkin.
My agenda, it didn't say they were taking Q&A after that.
Oh, sorry.
It said that they would take.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you still in the room, we have a short video of some exercises to help you do kind of a seventh inning stretch before our next program segment. So we're going to run that video for you now. You can participate or not as you wish. Thank you.
Then let's exercise. So first we're just going to review a task that you could do from your wheelchair or anywhere in sitting. You're going to simply pick one leg up, tap your opposite hand to your knee, and you'll do this for a minute. And if you do this without your back supported, it's a little harder. That's just one example. Now we'll review a couple exercises you can do lying down. Not everybody can get down onto the ground, so feel free to do these in your bed before you even get up first thing in the morning. To make it easier to get on the ground, simply start from a couch or a chair, and then lower yourself to the ground. The first exercise is just picking one leg up and placing it on the floor, pretending you have an egg underneath your foot and you don't want to crush the egg. And you'll just try this for a minute. Your movements need to be slow and controlled. Progress by incorporating opposite arm movement. Slow, controlled, quality movement is key. Do each for a minute. You could also do what we call bent knee fallouts, where one leg goes out halfway, back to the middle. Not all the way, just halfway, back to the middle, and then switch to the other leg, keeping your hips still for 1 minute. If these are too easy for you, you could add a bridge and do the same tasks, picking one leg up at a time without crushing the egg. If that's too hard, back off and just pick up one heel and lower while holding the bridge. Or bending your knee out to the side halfway, bringing it back to the middle. All of these you should try for at least a minute. Again, focus what you're able to do, and then set a goal to work to the progression eventually. This is a foam roller. It's 36 inches long, 6 inches wide. This is a half round roller that's 3 inches wide, and this is a full round roller. A minute. Again, focus what you're able to do, and then set a goal to work to the progression eventually. This is a foam roller. It's 36 inches long, 6 inches wide. This is a half round roller that's 3 inches wide, and this is a full round roller. So I'll give you an example of some things you can do using the foam roller. You can lay on the foam roller with the flat side down, which is easier, or flip the foam roller up so the round side is down, flat side is up. That's harder. The nice thing about the foam roller is you can work on your balance, but yet you're low to the ground. So the first challenge is, can you just lay on the roll and not fall off? And just try that for a minute. A progression then is to see if you can coordinate staying on the roll with movement. Try that for a minute. Or try raising your heel up and then lower for a minute. Or combining raising one heel up and your opposite arm for a minute. Or can you pick one leg up without falling off the roll and put it back down? Again, you be the judge as to what is the right level of challenge for you. We want the exercise to be safe but doable. Now we're going to try some exercises on your hands and knees. A simple one to start off with is to just pick one arm up and hold it for 5 seconds, lower and switch, and then raise your other arm, hold for 5 seconds, and switch. And do that for a minute, and then progress. Pick one leg up, hold for 5 seconds, lower, and switch. Try that for a minute. Then combine the two, but only if you can do so without falling. You be the judge if this is right for you. exercise on your hands and knees is simply crawling. You're going to move your hand and your opposite leg in sync. And you can go both forward and backward, and try for a minute each. You could also try side crawling, where your hands are together, knees are apart, and then move your hands apart, knees together for a minute. And you want your hands and your legs to move in sync. Again, focus on quality of movement, not speed. Keep your head up and your shoulders with good posture. Another one is to incorporate rocking with either arm movement or leg movement. Okay, those give you some basic ideas, but again, you be the judge of what is right for you, and just focus on what you can do successfully and safely. All right.
So Jen, you should take a plug and let everybody know that that's available online and they can watch the whole thing. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, so a very generous donor from the Johns Hopkins Ataxia Center funded that exercise video, and if you were to Google Johns Hopkins Ataxia Center exercise video, the whole video will pop up, and you can watch it from the beginning to the end. For those of us who are in the room and want to participate, we're just going to do a couple seated exercises, and then we'll get to the second part of the presentation to talking about rehabilitation strategies. And then we'll take questions at the end. So I'm going to ask, for those who are interested, you don't have to if you don't want to, you're going to sit at the very edge of your chair. And we're going to do a very easy version first of just taking one hand and tapping your opposite knee. And so you're kind of marching in place, doing a cross-body movement. And if you're at the edge of the chair, you're going to get the benefit of challenging your balance. The progression of this, you're going to bring both hands up in the air. You're going to look at your right hand, and you're going to watch your right hand and follow your right hand the whole time as you're crossing your body and tapping your opposite knee. And then following your hand up, and then changing your gaze to your left hand and do the same thing. Follow your hand with your eyes, tap your right knee, and then follow your hand as you bring your hand up to the starting position. And then repeat. Look at your right hand, cross over, tap your left knee, switch your gaze to your left hand, cross your body, tap your right knee, come back up. Change your gaze to your right hand, cross your body, tap your left knee. Change your gaze to your left hand, cross your body, tap your right knee, and relax. So that's a nice little exercise you could do at the edge of your bed before you get out of bed in the morning, along with the next one. The next one, again, you're going to sit at the very edge of the chair. You're going to have to give yourself some room to stretch your arms out to the side, palms up. You're going to look at one hand. Next, lean your body to one side while maintaining your gaze onto your hand. Hold for 5 seconds. Come back to the middle. Now, look at your left hand. Keep your eyes gazed on that left hand as you reach as far as you can to the left. Hold for 5 seconds. Come back to the middle and switch. Let's look at our right hand. Lean to the right, keeping your eyes on your hand. Hold for 5 seconds. Come back to the middle. Look at your left hand. Gaze to your eyes on the left hand. Reach to the left. Hold. Come back to the middle and relax. Good. All right, the next exercise we're going to do is still at the edge of the chair. We're going to row the boat. You're going to start off by bringing your hands forward and leaning back without your back touching the chair. Then you're gonna row the boat. You'll lean your body forward with bringing your arms back, head up, and repeat. Lean back with your hands forward, and then come forward with your hands back, keeping your head up, squeezing your shoulder blades. Lean back, hands together, hold for 5 seconds, come forward, head up, hands back, and repeat. Good. All right, the last one is the V-sit. So you're sitting at the edge of your chair. You can thank Meredith here, our coworker, who's out on maternity leave right now. Otherwise, she'd be here at the conference. She came up with this exercise. You're gonna bring your knees up in the air, your feet off the ground with your hands crossed, and you have to remain balanced. Hold about 5 to 10 seconds.
I'll do the easier version for you. How about that?
And then relax. All right, and then let's try that again. You're gonna cross your arms, lean back without touching the backrest, hover your feet off the ground, and try to hang out there for 10 seconds. And relax. Awesome. All right, good job, everybody.